Okay, everyone. For those who haven't met me in person, my name is Pat Powell, and I have been working with energy and working with people for, I don't know, almost 10 years now. And to give you my background before I start this talk, I began my career as an IT guy, a hardcore numbers, hardcore ones and zeros, and before the internet was born, I was a programmer and I understand things in a black and white um, fashion. So my next move, my next direction came as a huge 180 for somebody with my background. I began experiencing things, and my analytical mind tried to analyze, okay, is that real or is that not real? Or how is that possible that what I saw is happening? And I'm sure a lot of people who have gone through this have questioned their sanity at times and said, well, I must be losing my mind, or the people around me are also crazy. I'm surrounded by crazy people. But I've always been a fact based individual, and I've always tried to, like I said, analyze the things I've experienced, the things I've seen, the things that I've done, and try to come up with answers for it. So now that I've given you my headspace and how my head thinks, now I will start to talk about some of the things that I have seen, some of the things that I've done, and then try to describe as best I can how it all fits and ties together in this universe that surrounds us and that we are part of. So, some sound crazy, but I have what the term that most people use is called remote viewing. You can look it up, you can Google it. Um, Governments have been doing research on it for since the 60s. Russians, Chinese, Americans, they have been trying to build let's call them an army of people who can travel without the physical body, go from one place to another space just simply by remote viewing it, as they call it. There was actually a movie made similar to what I'm describing, remote viewing, called Men Who Stare at Goats, where they were trying to develop soldiers who had the ability to do things with their minds that um, could not be described adequately. So I've talked about remote viewing. I haven't talked about some of the other things yet, but I will say that for later without trying to overwhelm you at once. So I guess the best way to begin is to just start to describe existence. What is existence? What is creation? What is this universe? Um, Existence for me is not just our life today. Our life today is just a chapter in our overall existence. We exist on multiple levels. We exist in multiple times and we come back. So, who you see before you right now, Pat, and who I'm speaking to on the other end, you are but a chapter in a book. So, existence encompasses all of you, all of your essence, all of your consciousness. And our consciousness is energy, and our energy encompasses all of time, beyond time, and all of space and beyond space. So before I get any further, I need to describe to you what space, what reality is made of. So, in a perfect example, this sheet of paper, pretend this sheet of paper represents our universe. And this sheet of paper, when I get the camera angle right, this sheet of paper looks like it is flat. So let's call this universe flat world or flat universe. In this flat universe, this two-dimensional universe, There is no up. You can only look forward, left and right, and behind you. So as far as somebody living in this two-dimensional universe, you cannot explain to them what up is or what down is because they have no concept, no mechanism, no vehicle, no dimension to get there. And again, to clarify, dimension is nothing more than a direction of motion. So in this flat world, let's say we all live in this flat world, but let's say for argument's sake, there is somebody who lives in this flat world. Can I get that? So this person lives in this flat world, but they also can live in another dimension, upworld, up and down dimension. So instead of 2 dimensions, that person now has 3. In that third dimension, that person now has access to more energy, more resources, more ability than somebody who is living purely in a 2-dimensional space. Now magnify that, explode that out even more, and tie that into what our scientists are telling us, that we don't just have 3 dimensions in our universe, we have 11. So what happens in those extra dimensions? And how does that affect us? I don't want to get too technical, but to make a long story short, they have tied now these extra dimensions to our physical form. There was an article published late last year where the guys who built the atomic bomb, the guys who built super colliders, they're really smart brains. They did an algorithm. They used a computer program, and they discovered that our brains actually have regions that exist in extra dimensions. So just sit back for a minute and think about that. Our brains have regions that have extra dimensions. So remember what we just talked about with this flat world. If we are a flat world and there is extra dimensions, extra movement, extra space, let's call it, in our brains that is not visible to us because of our 2-dimensional, well, in this case, 3-dimensional nature, what else is going on in those extra dimensions that our brains inhabit? Our bodies must also inhabit. My argument is that's where these extra perceptions, extra abilities come from. Some of us are more connected to these extra dimensions through these regions in our brains that we have discovered consist of extra dimensions. I have seen things on the other side of the planet from working with people. I have described their rooms, I've described the surroundings, I've described what they were wearing without ever even seeing them. And the reason why, and again, I haven't read any books about this because I'm a person that I like to experiment first. I'm the guy who you give the toy to once they put it together. I'm not the one who goes to the manual first. I try to kick it around and slam it together, and then if I can't get it to work yet, then I'll go for the manual. So these extra dimensions are what allow certain people the ability to have these extra perceptions and extra abilities that are not fully present in all of us. We all inherently have these abilities, but some of us have greater control and greater access. It's kind of like basketball or hockey or football. All of us can play football, or basketball, or hockey, but none of us are going to be a Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan, even though we can all play. So, like I've said before, we have this ability inherently in all of us. I have seen things that would make a sane man question their sanity. And some of you on this call have experienced that with me as well. Some of you on this call I have worked with, and you have been surprised, shocked, as far as some of the things that we have encountered and we have experienced. And that is because it defies what we've been taught. Our consciousness extends beyond this universe as we know it, beyond this reality of three-dimensional space that we call reality. Our consciousness is eternal. It is energy. And I'll give you another wrinkle. Based on my experience, and again, I have only the book of life to go by, personal experiences. All of our consciousness are combined, interconnected, interwoven, and working together. We are not fully cognizant of what our consciousnesses are doing together because in a physical form, we filter out a lot of what our higher purpose and higher energies are for. So people always ask me, is there a purpose? Do I have free will? What happens next? And it's a very good question. And the reality is both scientists and spiritualists, believe it or not, agree. I'll talk about the scientists for a moment. The scientists will tell you before this universe began, the forces of nature created the Big Bang. All of the elements that would have fallen from that Big Bang and created you and I today were predetermined and pre-baked into that explosion, let's call it, to create the Big Bang. So the Big Bang demanded that you be on this call right now, listening to me, and having this conversation and having this experience with me. Even before the universe began, it it mandated all of the events of unflow in a certain way. And it's kind of like if you bake a cake. If I give you a recipe and say add 3 eggs, half a pound of flour, half a pound of butter, and throw some raisins in there, mix it up and put it in the oven, you will get the same cake every time. The laws from the physics, from a scientific perspective, demanded that the cake be baked the same way. The cake would taste the same way every time. Every raisin would be in the exact same position, and every flavor, all the tastes and all the nuances would be the same, exactly the same. From a spiritual perspective, they also agree. Now you might say, now hold on a minute, Pat, I have free will, I can choose. You can, but your choice is an illusion. Before we came here, our consciousnesses, if there's such a word, consciousnesses, decided and defined and built our path. Our paths are intertwined and interwoven, because we are not islands. We interact with each other constantly. We push, we pull, we tug, we roll. We all work together behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to move us forward. People will say, well, Pat, I have my plan, and my plan is this, and this is what I want to do. It's not your plan. If you were the only person in existence, yes, then it would be your plan. If you were the only person in existence and you never interacted with anything else, then yes, it would be your plan. But we are born to parents, we die, we have children, we have family, we have wives, we have loved ones. They're all in that plan as well. And it is pure ego to believe that we can change not only our plan, but theirs as well. Let me give you an example. If you were able to look at a bad event that was going to happen in your life and say, man, I'm going to be in a car accident tomorrow. I don't want that. I'm going to change my plan. Now take a step back and look at the dominoes if you were able to do that. The person, the other party, let's say you're in a car accident, the other party who hits you, their plan has changed. The bystanders that would be looking, their plans are changed. The first responders, their plans will be changed. So there is a lot of interdependencies that happen if we were to change our plans, which would fall away because they're not our plans. There are combined plans. So I believe, based on the work that I've done and the things I've seen and the people I've worked with, that ultimately we are one entity. You might call this one entity spirit or God or whatever you want to call it. It's irrelevant. This one entity is our higher being, and we are part of that higher being, almost like cells in a giant brain. Individually, we are nothing. Together, we are perfection. But individually, we decided to come here to be imperfect. We wanted this messy, this sloppy, messy is probably the best word, this messy experience for a reason. It is a long discussion why we want this messy world of diseases like corona and war and poverty and bad things happening to good people. We want all of that. And you might ask, well, why the heck would I want this sloppy, messy world? I'm going to get into that, but not today. That'll be part 2. But the long and short of it is, this is what we chose. We chose this world. We chose this time, not just this world, but we chose this time to help us move forward into our objectives. Our objective isn't to come to this world and be happy, be rich, and make $1 million and tour the world and eat and drink and be merry and have sunshine and lollipops. It's not our objective. That might be our objective in the flesh, but we're not flesh. Our flesh is a vehicle for our objectives. And we discard this flesh when it serves its purpose and jump in another vehicle until it serves its purpose, and on and on and on and on. We die because we need to die. We want to die so we can start over again. Consider death like a reboot. Whereas we have taken this vehicle to the end of the road, and now we want to go off-road or go in a boat or go in a plane. Because the vehicle we had before has done everything it can do and experienced everything we wanted to experience in that vehicle. So people ask me all the time, can I cure them? Can I fix them? And that is a loaded question. First of all, you are where you are at any point in time by choice and where you're supposed to be. So to say, I've had a lady, she approached me with a son who had a mental illness and said, can you fix my son? And I said to her, what's wrong with your son? goes, well, he has attention issues, he has behavioral issues. And I said, well, that's his experience. Before he came here, he wanted that experience of that challenge, of his mental challenges. And you, mommy, also wanted that experience of having to care for somebody with those challenges. I can give you some tools to help you to cope and manage those challenges, but these mental challenges were core for your son coming here, and they were core for you as well to experience caring for a child with mental challenges. So curing, quote unquote, curing your son, not just impacts him and his objectives of coming here, but also impacts and changes your objectives for coming here as well. And if you keep going down the line, every person that your son will come across and meet, their objectives will be also modified. So no, I do not believe, again, that we have carte blanche to change our plan. If you believe, for instance, in God, either from a biblical perspective or a spiritual perspective, by saying that you can change your plan, you're effectively saying that God made a mistake, that God is imperfect, or that you know more than God. So that's why you're changing it. That's why you're changing the entire universe, because you didn't get what you were expecting at a particular point in your life. Because in that scenario, you would know more than everything. So I didn't want to overwhelm everybody on my first discussion, but I wanted to begin to open your mind a bit. Just a little crack in your consciousness, a little crack in your mind to make you be ready for the next discussion. If anybody wanted to ask any questions or comments, the floor is open, and I will do my best to answer any questions that anybody may have there. Everybody's being shy. So again, my name is Pat, and I have seen some things and done some things which have defied description, which have defied scientific explanation, and have called for a new discussion on reality, a new discussion on how this universe works and how we fit into it. And I hope you'll continue to join me on these discussions as we further talk about, or I further explore, our place in the universe and our true form and our true conscious. And with that, I will give you shy people one last opportunity to talk or ask questions or comment before I wrap this sucker up. Okay, bunch of quiet, shy people. Okay, everyone, I've given you enough to think about for a while. So until next time, this was part one of consciousness and our place in the universe. Hope to see you again on our next episode, hopefully sometime next week. All right, thank you very much, and have a good evening.